Hi, it's Katrina. As more and more wildlife species fall under the threat of extinction, humans have started to seriously consider the potential consequences of even just one animal being wiped out of existence. Here are 7 animals that people and the planet rely on to survive. Number 7. Ants. If you've ever eaten outside during the summertime, you've probably had at least one unwelcome encounter with ants. Or, like yours truly, you accidentally stepped on a fire ant hill. However, as pesky as these insects are, they are vital to our existence. Ants aerate soil and recycle nutrients by digging tunnels, which also aids in decomposition. In fact, ants turn out more soil than earthworms. Therefore, they play a major role in keeping soil healthy enough to facilitate plant growth. By digging around in the ground, ants also reduce the need for chemical fertilizers and irrigation. According to a 2011 study, ants and termites increased wheat crop yields in dry regions by 36%. And they aren't just vital for helping staple crops thrive. If you love coffee or chocolate, thank ants, because they have proven to be essential to the production of both. In addition to rummaging around in the dirt, different ant species perform various other important duties. Some ants transport seeds to nutrient-rich nests, an activity that spreads seeds and in turn helps plant life thrive. Many ants enjoy eating far peskier creatures than themselves, including bedbug eggs, fleas, larvae, flies, and even some deadly parasites and insects that spread disease to humans. If ants went extinct, most people wouldn't notice for the first week or so, but the scientific community would be in a panic. To the layperson, an increased presence of spiders would be one of the first noticeable effects. Soon after that, birds that normally eat ants would begin competing with each other and with spiders over alternative food sources. Because ants are near the base of the food chain, an inevitable chain effect would ensue, ultimately leaving very few species unaffected. Humans would suffer greatly due to failed crops, because without ants, most soil would not be healthy enough for cultivation. Food prices would skyrocket and there would be a global food shortage, and because of these factors, rioting and violence would likely become commonplace. Effects such as these would arguably constitute the mere beginning of a world without ants. Number 6. Bats. 1 in every 5 wild mammals is a bat, and they're one of the biggest consumers of insects on the planet. Just by doing what they do, bats help to keep insect populations under control, and without them, there would be a lot more bugs. Bats benefit farmers enormously by reducing the need for chemical pesticides and by saving billions of dollars of crops annually. Guano, or bat droppings, assist with seed dispersal, especially because bats travel long distances. Meanwhile, by drinking nectar and traveling from one flower to another, bats pollinate over 500 plant species. If you've ever wondered what purpose mosquitoes serve, they make perfect bat food. Mosquitoes are known to carry dangerous and potentially fatal diseases such as malaria and dengue fever, but you don't need me to tell you that. In just 1 hour, a single brown bat may eat up to 1,000 mosquitoes. Bats have been appropriately nicknamed farmers of the tropics due to the benefits they provide, and in many tropical and desert ecosystems, they are considered a keystone species, which means that the survival of other species depends heavily on them. Number 5. Plankton. This goes to show that just because we can't see an organism doesn't mean it's not important. You've probably heard of plankton, but like many, you may not know that much about it. Many people mistakenly believe that all plankton are plants, but plankton can be a number of things. Mainly, they're microscopic organisms that can barely move on their own and live underwater. As inconsequential as all 50,000 plankton species may seem, since we don't notice them, all living creatures depend on plankton in some way. Countless marine species rely on plankton as a primary food source, including fish, seabirds, blue whales, and dolphins. Plankton are also life-sustaining in another important way. If you're grateful for the air you breathe, thank plankton. Half of the world's oxygen supply is provided by the photosynthesis carried out by phytoplankton. Plankton are at the very base of the marine food chain, and if they were to die out, a mass extinction of many, if not most, of the planet's other species would follow. It would likely be of a similar magnitude to the Permian extinction, which occurred 250 million years ago and wiped out 90% of the world's species. While scientists aren't sure what caused the Permian extinction, they know that it was triggered by a catastrophic event. The disappearance of plankton would indeed be catastrophic, causing the chain of life to quickly become a chain of starvation. In the meantime, CO2 levels in the atmosphere would skyrocket and oxygen levels would drastically decrease. Could humans survive a mass extinction like this? Yes, but the odds would not be in our favor, and if we did survive, we would still experience unimaginably devastating consequences. Unfortunately, this apocalyptic scenario could eventually become a reality. Andrew Barton, oceanographer and associate research scholar at Princeton University, explained in a 2017 interview with Pacific Standard magazine that global warming poses a serious threat to phytoplankton and that their numbers are diminishing rapidly. Since 1950, 40% of the global phytoplankton population has died off. As the world's waterways continue to increase in temperature, phytoplankton will continue to disappear, since warmer waters will lead to a decrease in oxygen levels that are necessary for supporting phytoplankton populations. Uh-oh. Number 4. Frogs. Whether you love them or hate them, frogs deserve some credit for their role as bioindicators. This means that they are useful for indicating the health of their ecosystem. A frog's porous and permeable skin allows substances in its environment to seep into its fatty tissue. Because frogs live both in water and on land, they help bring attention to contaminants in terrestrial and aquatic habitats. They are often the first animal to respond to biological hazards, therefore cautioning humans about nearby dangers and giving us more time to react. Evelyn S. Gonzalez of Florida International University pointed out in a May 2017 article for phys.org that 30% of the Earth's frog species are at risk of extinction. In addition to frogs being bioindicators, she noted several other reasons they're worth saving. For one, the extinction of pretty much any species is bound to disrupt an ecosystem on some level, and frogs play especially important roles in their ecosystems. As tadpoles, they consume algae, which reduces the risk of algal contamination and moderates blooms. Frogs also eat insects, including disease-spreading mosquitoes, which helps to keep these populations under control. Many animals eat frogs, including birds, fish, monkeys, and snakes. Because of their place within their ecosystems, the extinction of frogs would have what Gonzalez described as cascading effects. In other words, the entire food chain of that ecosystem would most likely suffer. Number 3. Termites. You may be shocked to learn that an insect humans typically think of as invasive and destructive is actually beneficial in some ways. After all, termites cause billions of dollars worth of damage to homes every year, so it's understandable that most people dislike them. But like I said, termites aren't entirely bad. Similar to ants, their activities aerate soil. Termites also play a vital role in the recycling of an ecosystem's energy because they consume decomposing matter. Additionally, unlike most other insects who perform similar functions, termites' guts contain microorganisms that break down cellulose, which are the building blocks plants are made of. The various types of wood that termites eat contain complex sugars, including cellulose, and these gut microbes enable their digestion. This unique ability might not be very impressive when termites chomp on your house, but it's helpful when it comes to the cleaning up of cellulose-based litter, such as leaves and tree branches. We don't have to worry about termites going extinct anytime soon. In fact, despite their positive traits, termite populations will probably become increasingly problematic in the future. For every human on Earth, there's 1,000 pounds of termites, and these numbers are expected to grow significantly in coming years. Because termites are resistant to the effects of climate change, there's very little reason to believe that their predicted upward trajectory will reverse or stop. An excessive termite population could easily cause their negative impacts to outweigh the benefits that they offer. Number 2. Honeybees. Honey is delicious, but that's not why humans need honeybees. These hardworking insects are critical to sustaining life on Earth because of pollination, which is the transfer of pollen from the male part of the flower, the anther, to the female part, the stigma. Biology class 101. By pollinating plants that can't pollinate themselves or achieve it some other way, honeybees enable seeds, nuts, and fruits to grow. Much of the Earth's plant life depends on this invaluable service that honeybees happily provide free of charge. Honeybees are extremely efficient when it comes to getting the job done because they focus on one particular plant species at a time, which ensures an adequate distribution of pollen. There are around 100 crop species that feed 90% of the global population, and 70 of these crops rely directly on honeybees for pollination. Without honeybees, many plants would go extinct, and 1/3 of our plant-based staple foods would no longer be available, including broccoli, pumpkins, blueberries, almonds, and apples, just to name a few. Since the late 1990s, conservationists have become increasingly concerned about the potential disappearance of honeybees, and for good reason. The planet is losing honeybees at an alarming rate due primarily to factors related to human activity, such as the loss of flower meadows, pesticide use, and climate change. According to Greenpeace, saving honeybees will ultimately require a large-scale shift from industrial to ecological farming practices, including eliminating the use of bee-killing pesticides. Number 1. Primates. Primates are our closest relatives within the animal kingdom, and they're special in many ways. At a public debate in London in 2008, Ian Redmond, chairman of an international coalition of organizations known as the Ape Alliance, argued that preventing the extinction of primates is imperative to the well-being of the planet and to modern civilization. Primates are highly intelligent and social animals, and since their DNA and ours are 90% similar, scientists may be able to learn from primates about our own beginnings and how we came to form complex cultures and societies. Additionally, the primate-watching tourism industry provides economic benefits to impoverished rural societies by generating income and creating jobs. Countries such as Uganda and Rwanda rely heavily on the influx of foreign currency directly resulting from primate-related tourism. These factors are reason enough to fight to save primates from extinction, not to mention their basic right to exist and thrive on the planet just like any other species. But these aren't the only reasons to combat the endangerment of primates, nor are they the most important ones. Many primates are considered keystone species within the tropical and subtropical environments they inhabit. Humans and other life forms depend on the ecosystems of these habitats, which provide the planet with oxygen through photosynthesis and transfer moisture from the land to the atmosphere via evapotranspiration, a process that heavily influences global rainfall patterns. So, what does that all have to do with primates? Seeds get spread by their droppings, which ensures the necessary plant dispersal for vegetation to thrive. It may seem silly, but without these animals, plant life would struggle even harder to survive, and therefore would become increasingly jeopardized and one step closer to dying out. Thanks for watching! Hope you learned something new today. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye!